What's up, everybody? It's Man of Low Moral Fiber here. My name's Luke, and today we're going to be talking about some disappointing news that came about as a part of the recent Borderlands 2 patch. That patch admittedly brought a lot of good things to the game, however, it has very negatively and very severely affected Zero. Zero has two skills, Deathmark and Death Blossom, which work in combination with each other, as you might have guessed. They're in the same skill tree, and they both start with the word Death. Let's go ahead and take a look at Death Blossom first, because this is a skill that actually allows us to throw Kunai, and Death Blossom and Deathmark in combination are often referred to simply as Kunai. And you'll see a lot of people upset right now that Kunai have been nerfed. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. First, we'll look at throwing the Kunai. You can see that there are 4 distinct knives that get thrown. Some of those came a little bit close together, but I hope you guys were able to see that there were 4 different knives there. And that allowed us to stack Deathmark up to 4 times. I guess it counted as 4 melee attacks hitting a target at once. And if we read the text here on Deathmark, we can see that marked targets take an additional 20% damage, and marks, plural, last for 8 seconds if you read that last line there. And so that's a little bit ambiguous there. It definitely implies that multiple marks can be applied. Whether that is to multiple enemies or one enemy is a little bit ambiguous. We'll get back to that a little bit later, but first let's go ahead and make sure that we are not getting the 80% multiplicative boost that was occurring before the patch, and we are indeed getting this nerfed 20% that is available now. Headshot gives me 70-64. Let's go ahead and get some kunai on this dude. Hopefully he doesn't get slagged, and then we'll hit him in the head again for 84-76. So that is only 20% more than our 70-64. So that really sucks. If we were getting that 80% boost, it'd be somewhere in the 12-7 range, which is a lot higher. 12-7 is about 50% more than that 8 we were getting before. So that kind of sucks. It's definitely very negatively affected Zero in a significant way. If we take a look at Zero's bloodshed tree, this is where he gets some of his primary melee skills. We can see that his game changer there, Many Must Fall, requires him to get a one-shot, one-kill with execute while in deception in order to be granted another deception. And so without the ability to one-hit as many enemies, because keep in mind, Zero is dealing approximately 50% less damage than he could be doing, Many Must Fall isn't going to be as easy to activate. And so that really sucks. Zero is now about 2/3 as potent as he was before the patch, which is pretty damn bad for a character that relies on burst damage. Now, I said that we'd get back to this marks lasting for 8 seconds, and we are going to now. Deathmark was in the early stages of the game, or the very early life cycle of Borderlands 2, able to be applied by 4 zeros up to 16 times, meaning you get a 320% multiplicative damage boost, which is pretty outrageous, you know? It's a pretty wild thing there. And that was allowing Zeros to quickly make mincemeat of raid bosses and such. And I guess, you know, even though there are some characters that by default kind of trivialize raid bosses and stuff, they didn't want 4 zeros doing that for whatever reason. So instead of, patching it in a smart way, what they did was make it so that only one Deathmark could be applied in the game. First, I gotta kill this rabbit. I didn't expect him to be here. I'm sorry about this. So yeah, first they had to try a really bad patch, I guess. And this rabbit is a little bit irritating right now. But yeah, so they tried this patch and they made it so that only one Deathmark could be applied in the game at all. It didn't matter if you had 1 zero, 2 zeros, whatever. You'll notice right now that I can apply a Deathmark to this Clash Stalker and also this Clash Stalker as well. We can see that they both have Deathmarks right now. So that does confirm that multiple Deathmarks can still be applied. However, we have confirmed that multiple Deathmarks cannot be applied to one enemy. So instead of marking potentially 5 targets for 80% extra damage, we can only mark them for 20% extra damage, which is a significant difference. If they knock me off the edge, that's really going to suck. Yeah, so that's a big deal. I wanted to fast travel out there because they were getting close. Anyway, it's a big deal because it very negatively affects Zero. Basically, if he can only deal 1.2x damage instead of 1.8x damage, that's going to make him about 66.66 repeating % as powerful as he could be. or it would mean that he's dealing about 50% less damage than he could be in some scenarios. And so that really sucks. He is 1/3 less powerful than he was before the patch, or at least he can deal 1/3 less maximum peak damage, and that very negatively affects Zero, all playstyles of Zero, not just melee Zero, not just sniper Zero, but anyone who plays Zero and uses Deathmark and Death Blossom, which is almost everybody who plays Zero, especially at max level, because it was such a potent combination. The nerfing of Kunai, or the interaction between Deathmark and Death Blossom, has taken Zero from one of the more powerful characters to one of the weaker characters in a single move like that. And that really sucks. That is something that is very disappointing, and I'm hoping it is not intended behavior. Now, the way these skills are worded, it is a little bit ambiguous. I'm not sure what the proper behavior that Gearbox actually wants is, but I can tell you that Zero functions much better as a character and is much more enjoyable and viable if Deathmark and Death Blossom are working in unison the way they were before. And so I'm hoping that they return it to the behavior how it was before the October 29th patch. Now, you can definitely tell Gearbox about this. Do not be a jerk about it. Do not spam anyone's Twitter. Do not do that kind of bullshit. If you want to, discuss this or ask for it to be returned to the 80%, ask in a polite and well-mannered way on their forums. That is the best way to do it, and I promise you'll get better results than, say, spamming a CEO's Twitter or something like that. That is absolutely asinine, and I hope none of you fucking do that. That said, I hope this Kunai thing gets fixed before too long, because I wanted to do another Zero playthrough soon, and having, the ability to deal like 50% more damage than Zero can currently do would be a huge thing for me. But like I said, Zero can only deal about 2/3 of his maximum potential damage compared to prior to the patch. And so that's definitely a big deal, and it very negatively affects Zero. And if they're going out of their way to make Maya more in line with the other characters, and they have, helped Maya out, it doesn't make sense to then turn around and just absolutely cripple Zero. So hopefully they bring Zero back to how he was. I wish they'd just return it to how it was at the very beginning of Borderlands 2. If you have multiple Zeros, things should bend over and die to you, but maybe not. Maybe they'll just return it to maximum of 80% cap, which is probably the best. So, hopefully we get that back. It'll be interesting to see what happens with it, though. I'm hoping for the best, and I hope you guys are too. So, as always, guys, I thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you haven't yet taken the time to subscribe, please do so. I'd appreciate that as well. Otherwise, I do hope to catch you next time. Bye, guys.